have advisors and experts and people that you can rely on, to lean on, and also to be in a community, whether it's somewhere like TechHub, where you're hearing there's events, there are things going on, there's other people going through the pain points that you are going through, the same journey that you can talk to, you can speak to. So it can be a very lonely place. I sometimes feel like I'm an agony aunt and a counsellor for some of my clients, and they call me up just to have a cry on a Friday afternoon about or something. But sorry.
Well, hello and welcome to TechHub. If any of you aren't familiar with TechHub, we're a community of tech product entrepreneurs. We have about 400 startups that are working out of this building. We have this floor and then 2 floors above us as well. Our startups range from anywhere from single founders looking to grow their idea into a larger scale-up, up to scale-ups that are 60 plus employees. A little bit of a breakdown of who our companies and members are. We have different startups in the fintech sector, SaaS, AI, doing a lot of different things in GovTech, health tech, you name it. If it's tech, we probably have someone working on it here. What's really unique about kind of what we offer here is our community, as a lot of our founders are sole founders and they're working on growing their team. We really strive to offer connections with other founders. A lot of the founders here will work around a table, get to chat. We have our members' drinks. So we really try to create like a really thriving and inclusive community here. If you're interested in membership, we have Purdy, our head of program here, and Andrew, our COO, right over here. So be sure to chat to us a little bit. We'd love to talk to you more about what we offer here. And also, if you're around and interested, next Tuesday at lunchtime, we're going to be having the founder of What 3 Words, Chris Sheldrick, come in to chat to our founders. So if you'd like to attend, just talk to us afterwards. There's more details online. And I think I'll pass the microphone over to you. We're going to get started now.
Thank you very much and welcome everybody. The format of this evening is more of an informal question and answer session. We'll kick off with some questions and then we'll throw it open to the floor to start with. I'm Neil from Davis Grant, but I'll just pass down the line and ask Christian, Oliver and Stephen to introduce themselves to start with. A little bit about themselves, and then we'll kick on from there. So,
thanks a lot. Thanks for coming. So I'm Christian, CEO of Capdesk. I founded Capdesk in 2015, so almost going for 5 years now. Thought it would be done a little bit quicker, but it takes a little bit of time. What we do in Capdesk is that we're an equity management platform. So we're sort of like an accounting platform for equity. So if you know Nutmeg, Moneybox, Secret Escapes, kind of companies that raise a lot of money. Right now they use spreadsheets to keep track of their hundreds of millions of pounds worth of equity, and we just basically help them put them all on a platform to audit it and keep track of the ownership. So that's what we do. So when you all become really big and successful, then make sure to use us.
thank you.
Hi, I'm Ollie Cummings, Commercial Director and one of, I think, number 3 in the company. We started 5 years ago as well. Interesting.
Lucky, yeah.
And we are aggregation platform for business lending, but we work directly with advisors, such as you guys here, to help them actually take ownership of the funding piece themselves. And so that's our kind of core market. A little bit, no, a bit about.
Yeah, go on.
Why don't you carry on?
No, that's all.
No, that's it. That's all you want to say.
Okay.
Yes, I'm Stephen from Davis Grant, the accountants here. So we've been going a little bit longer than 5 years. I think about 80 years, something like that. I haven't been there all that time. Only I think about 19 years or something. So, but we're a classic accounting firm providing all sort of outsourced services. But about 10 years ago, maybe even longer now, we had one key client who at the time, you may have heard of a guy called Shaq Khan, who was to us was just some random client that we just had, and he had a business that sold down into AOL back in .com, but he happened to be one of the first investors in Spotify, and at the time he said, the tech community wasn't being serviced by accountants. It was either the big 4 firms that were a bit stuffy and their prices were a bit high, or very low firms that didn't understand the intricacies of things like cap tables or funding or things like EIS and SEIS and R&D tax credits and all this sort of stuff. And recommended we get into this space, which we did, and invested heavily and learnt a lot and learnt very quickly. And 10 years later, I think at any one time we're acting for about 50 tech startups. A number are here. We have a very close association with TechHub themselves. I do a clinic here every few months as well to help the startups as well. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you all very much. In terms of funding of your businesses, can Christian and Oliver give us a bit more detail about where you are on that journey right now?
Yes, I can. So I think we raised about £3 million of funding, and we're actually soon going to announce our £3 to £4 million raise now. Cross wood, that's why I look a little bit tired. Yeah, I mean, what we did is we had early business angel in the beginning who gave us a little bit of money. That lasted us for about 6 months. Then I think on the back of that 6 months, we had to reverse engineer our targets. So we basically agree with the business angel what do we need to achieve in order to make sure we get our next funding. So we knew what to go for. Hello?
Yeah, maybe.
Is it good? So we knew what we had. So together with this business angel, we made sure of 2 things. We made sure that 1, he's got in the network, so he knows the other investors, and 2, that he could set targets that we knew were realistic as well, believed in. So he gave us a little bit of money. What was that, like 30K, something like that, for us to launch a product, get some traction, and then luckily we did get some traction, and he managed to find us 2 other investors. They invested 100K, and again we reverse engineered our targets, and then that worked, and then we raised our first kind of, I don't know, what is it called, pre-seed round or seed round, I'm not sure. It's about 1 million pounds from a fund, and that's when we kind of grew up, because once you take venture money, it's a little bit of a different game. They don't care that much about like traction or how well you're doing. They just care about like, can this be a unicorn? Yes or no? And then you have to convince them every single time. And my CTO was like, Christian, you can't lie straight to their face. No, don't you believe we're going to be more than £1 billion worth in 2 years? No, I don't. So I just think that's the game you play with fixed VCs. Did that for a year or so, ran out of money again. And then we got another VC called Fuel Ventures, just up here. And actually, another story. So the first VC was Shaw again. They followed on in the next round. So we're missing investments. They led the first round, the second round we did. So all of our angels or VCs have always led the next round, which I think is really important because that's what you need. And now this round is led by our previous investor. So all our rounds have been led by an existing investor. So that's kind of the story. I can go much more into details about funding, but that's kind of the brief.
Thank you.
So we've done 3 rounds so far. I believe we've raised 5 million at the moment, and we're just actually about to start our Series B for some more because of our growth plans are kind of really on track. So it's been a really kind of exciting time. But what happened at the start was I came in just after the first angel round, and the angel round happened by our 2 founders. One came out of investment bank and one had already built a load of companies already. And so we actually raised 750K from basically pretty close, good, solid angels. We built the platform with that, and then that's when I came on, and we raised a seed again with 750, and we could have raised more at that point, but we only actually needed 750 because we were still in proof of concept mode to get it to the point where we wanted the valuation to do our Series A. So I suppose it's an angel seed. We brought in all our angels invested again, and then we brought in a couple of VCs at that point, and we actually stayed in one of the VC's offices, similar to the into the TechHub vibe, and I really do recommend that as you grow, because it's when you're only 10 people, you really want more people to talk to as well when you're in the day-to-day, and it's just that kind of community. We've actually moved out into our own places now because we're a much bigger company, and we need to build our own culture, and it's culturally very important that we are in one place. We went on and basically cherry-picked who we need in our next round, and we went to America and got QED Investors, which is kind of one of the largest fintech investors, and we really like them because they built Capital One and sold it. So they really did. That's like the first fintech business, really. Maybe Visa and MasterCard were, but and so for us, they were who we wanted. So maybe because of the way we built our company, we were quite lucky to target in on the VC that we wanted and get them on board. And what's great now is now we're in the going for Series B. They're a fund that can happily jump in. And so what we're really looking for in our Series B is who can help us with our future plans. And so when we're choosing the VCs to work for, it's all about their knowledge and expertise and whether they can help us in the future growth of the business. And that's, I come from a venture capital background myself. After accountancy, I worked in a VC, and it's so important. There's not just money. This is money that wants you to do something very special in 7 years or so, and they need to have some serious expertise in your field.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to ask a question. So one of the things that I always get asked is, what valuation do you put on? You know, you're raising this money, but what's the
Of course you thought about that.
the pre-money valuation? They come to us, and they often come to us,
Yeah.
and they say, "Well, you're the accountants. What value should I be going?" And I said, we can't give you a figure. It's not an accounting thing. You look on your P&L and your balance sheet. It doesn't really. The normal metrics don't work, and there are certain products. We've had to do one on a software called Equidam, which you may know of, and that tries to build in different factors to sort of come to a quantifiable valuation. There was one where a company of our client of ours was getting investment from India, and as part of the requirement, all of the companies had to go through this Equidam process. But I'm just interested for yourselves. How did you come to valuations when you were looking to get those rounds?
I mean, I think there's a lot of horseshit going around about valuations, also from the VC side, because all of a sudden, sometimes they want to have like a revenue multiple and say, we invest, can you show me the revenue multiple for the valuation? And then I'm like, well, you just gave that, company that does deep tech £100 million with no revenue. Yeah, but that's different. So if you can't put everybody in the same box, then it's not valid. I think what will happen early on is that you meet somebody, and then you need to take into consideration three things. How much does investor need in order to kind of have motivation to work with you? Because he needs this, a specific equity stake. So typically when you get a seed investor in, he would like to have it at least between 10 and 20%. And then you look at how much you need. What is fair, how much you need. That's how the first valuation is done, to be honest. I guess we were quite tricky because we came with no credentials. And me and my founder were like both in our mid-20s, and like there was not a lot of stuff there. So we had to go very, very low in valuation to begin with and just say, this is how much we need. You get 20%, and then we shook hands. And he got 10% actually, I think, and that was done. But then gradually, as you go up the venture game, then you would hear sometimes, well, I don't think that's a fair valuation. I don't think there is an easy way of setting a valuation, because some VCs would say it depends on the market size. If the market size is huge and you've got not a lot of revenue, they'll put your valuation up. And others would say, well, if the market size is really low and you've got a lot of revenue, then it depends so much. So I think you need to make sure as a founder that you can triple, like that's your conservative benchmark. The VCs would say more, but whenever I take an evaluation, it's because I actually really believe together with my management that we can triple the valuation for next round, the share price. And then you look at those metrics, what do I need to do in order to triple the share price? And I think that's a good way of working around it. Set the highest valuation you can get, but make sure you can triple it. And then convey that story.
Coming from a corporate finance background, it's completely impossible to value us. So it's a very strange game. It's basically writing 3-year forecasts about how amazing and wonderful you could become, convincing someone how amazing and wonderful you could become, and then using that metric and that multiple based on revenue, with a clear example of the curve of profit and losses and sales kind of eventually doing this, clearly on that table. So I really struggle with businesses who are starting to use these products, because it's all about the numbers going into them, that they can say it's this multiple, but will your revenue do 1 million, 10 million, 40 million, or will it do 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, 20 million kind of thing, or will it do 1, 2, 3, 4? It's very hard to know, and the VCs and you have to spend a lot of time chatting about your assumptions, your business size, your business opportunity, future opportunities for your business, and all that is in. And so what you need is someone who truly understands your market, someone who understands the opportunity of your market, and someone that you can have a really sensible conversation about where you're going, and get them to help you to go there. At Series C, at Series B, it's much more factual because you've already built a business and it's already working. You're not really a startup anymore. You've got a genuine use case. Every product market fit's going. You've got wonderful customers. You can show everything. That is now getting more into the metrics, actual kind of growth, and what can we do from this month to next month, not just into the years. So, but at the start, you've got to sell to investors as much as you've got to sell to your first customers.
Yeah, I've got one thing to add actually, because when we did our first 6 months actually, you kind of just going through the next funding round, we kind of reverse engineered our valuation as well a little bit, because we found out, okay, we're not going to make any revenue. Well, what stakeholder do we have? So we are equity management platform. What stakeholder do we have that we could potentially look at that stakeholder and say that lifetime value is a lot? And we found out that stakeholder is the shareholder, right? So we could get a wealth manager to basically say that if you got the address and email of each high net worth individual shareholder, then that would be worth, I think, we put it up to £10,000 or something, lifetime value, which is just it's not how do you argue that? And then we got him to write a fancy little thing, an email, and then we just knew we had to acquire a lot of shareholders. Then how many shareholders do we need in order to get valuation and raise that stage? And then it worked, because then we showed them the email and we said, well, we acquired, I think, 2,000 investors, something like that. And then we're like, yeah, this is it. You get a little discount, and that's our valuation. And so I think sometimes you can be a little bit clever about it, saying which stakeholder in my infrastructure I'm working on can I get most likely to use the platform right away without having the end customer maybe to pay for it, and can I get that into my kind of valuation model? I think that's a good way of starting out.
And to add to that, you get held to that once you get to, because your long-term lifetime value to CAC becomes a serious thing, and it becomes very calculatable, which is quite important. And you really do need to have to prove that you can bring on future customers in a way of a certain cost that will hit a decent profitability margin of some kind in the near future, because that's the kind of conversation that kicks in after when you're in your early stages. It's like, I think I could get this, and we're in a situation now where we have a lifetime value calculation, and we do have a cost of acquisition calculation, and we've now got to optimize and grow.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all. It's not working. That's all very interesting. And I'm just picking up on some things a little while ago. We were talking about your angel investors, and it seemed to be how important they've been on your journey to get that right. And you seem to put it across that it kind of fell into place. But I'm sure it probably wasn't quite like that. So within that journey, what were your key learning points right at the beginning stages of finding the right angel investor, and not kind of being tempted by going down the wrong avenue with them?
Well, I think in the beginning, beggars can't be choosers. So you literally, wherever there is an opportunity, you go for it. But I cannot address how important it is to, we spoke about it earlier, about the network, how important it is to go out there and go for the network. I'm mentoring this new startup, and they're having a funding round. And I said, how many investors you've been speaking to? And I said, 10. And they all said no. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I literally spoke to 200. I was out there every single week, because the only thing you can control it. You can control how many conversations you have with people. It's very easy. You say, I would like to have 20 conversations a week, and you do it. And if you don't do it, you're failing, right? So whenever you can control, not the outcome, but the process, do it. And I hear so many people in the startup journey that's just not putting in that work. And I think in order to get from those angel investors, you go to the niche events, because everybody can be an angel investor. You go to an event, or you go to LinkedIn and you say, oh, it's fantastic what you're doing with cat food. I love cat food. I'm actually thinking about going into it. Do you want a coffee? You speak to him, and guess what? He's got 10 people he knows, and he's got to recommend you to one. You've got 50 of those meeting. All of a sudden, you might have 20 angels there. So don't think about the angel. Don't go on LinkedIn and write angel or go to angel. Just think about people and networks. Because if it's a job, if it's, I spoke to some Danish guys, or if it's your education, speak to them. They all like to help, and then you would surely get a recommendation. And that's the best way to meet an angel, and that's why I did as well.
The only thing I would add is certainly my experience, having worked with startups for the last 10 years, is it's very hard when you're just a sole founder to do that. You have to do it, for sure. You do need to do it, but there's very much an opportunity cost of everything, and especially you're a sole founder. You're thinking, if I'm going out here, I'm not working on the product. If I'm not doing that, I'm not getting, doing my market research, whatever it is, and it's very, very hard. And the ones that I've seen that have been successful, very much that early on, they get a co-founder and they share the burden between them, so that it's ticking over every day, ticking over movement in the product, movement in every aspect of the startup, so that the burden is shared. And I think that's very important. And for all of you who are sole founders, good luck on that journey.
I agree, though.
There's quite a lot of statistics around sole founders versus dual founders, and VCs backing far more dual founders. It's a pretty strong correlation. We were slightly lucky in the sense that the founders are slightly older, and they were in their early and mid 30s, which meant they had quite good. They'd already done quite a lot already and built quite large networks through what they were already doing, and they went to those networks in a very big way and already had like business coaches and mentors, and it was quite. They found it that we could be quite tailored towards it, and it was also in that period where fintech was really where it was at, and they had two very sensible founders. And interestingly, for the second round is when I came on board and took over the majority of the running of the business. That was because the CEO, who did 100% seed round and building the pack and everything he needed to do, while I was in charge of actually kind of building the business. And so that separation of roles gave him the flexibility to really go out and raise the right money from the right people. And it wasn't the easiest journey in the world. It just fell into place in the end. Lots of meetings.
I also think, just to touch base on what you said about the product and the business plan, I think it's such a waste of time to write a business plan or to work on the product in the beginning. It's just like, don't do it. Like, investors are going to invest in you. They're not going to invest in a prototype you outsourced or a business plan that you made based on nothingness. They're going to invest in you, and they're going to work with you, and they're going to meet you like 5 times, 6 times, and figure out, like, how agile are your way of thinking, how easy can you take feedback, how easy can you incorporate something if you ask for a deliverable, how easy can you do it. That's the kind of relationship he wants with you, and then he starts trusting it. He's not going to look at a high fertility prototype and say like, yes, that's what I want, because he knows you can't. He knows you can't code. Like, you need to go out there and just convey yourself as an entrepreneur, saying, you should bet on me. I am the guy who can make this happen, and give me the funding, I'll make it work. I think that's strong. That's what I'll do.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Surely at the initial stage you need something concrete. Like, maybe it's not an extensive business plan, maybe it's a PowerPoint presentation or
Yeah, but then I would
you
do.
need anything?
Yeah, you definitely need a pitch deck, right? You need a good pitch deck, and you also need a low fidelity prototype of some sort. But what I would probably recommend is you spend the time you have. So if you think you've got a year to test your startup, then you use a year to perfect that pitch deck, and you use a year to perfect that low fidelity prototype. I would literally say, like, I'm gonna take a bank holiday weekend. That's it, I'm done.
Okay.
That's it, I'm done. I'm gonna lock it down, take some feedbacks, and then you prepare everything for that weekend, so it's all done. But don't spend more time on it. After that, it's just about getting in front of the right people, getting their inputs, and then you maybe take a weekend again, 3 weeks from then, and you gather all the inputs into it, and it's got to gradually change your product. But don't wait, because when you hit the investors and when you hit the market, the whole thing is going to change. Your whole product is going to be, don't outsource it, because all of a sudden an investor would say something. You'd be like, yeah, I've been working in the cat food industry for 20 years, and actually, this is brilliant. The other thing is just forget about that. And all of a sudden, you've got a completely different product. Somebody told me this kind of, one investor showed me this graph of a company is a bit like, you've got an idea, it's the idea, and then you've got a mirror, and then it reflects the other way around. So you're going to have the same idea, but it's going to be parallel in the mirror, because you hit the market, and then everything changes. So it's the same essence, but it's just mirrored in itself in a reflection. And it's so true, because you go out there with something, and then you end up with something completely different. So get your head around how do I take feedback, how do I speak to people, be presentable, like be energetic, deliver on your promises, give something to them, and then people will back you. Oh.
Okay. So in terms of learning points from your journey building from there, have you got any other key learning points apart from the fact that it doesn't end up as you first envisaged at all within your journey so far?
I think it's about being good at doing many things at once. There's no other job in the world that comes with so much self-hatred and so much self-hatred and so many things that you wish you'd done better. And you often end up doing what you did in your previous job. If that's sales, you end up doing sales. If that's business plan, you end up doing the business plan. So I think it's about structuring your own time and making guaranteed wins, because it's all about your energy level and getting excited. So make these kind of targets for the week that's just low enough so you reach it and just high enough to give you energy, because that's the energy that will investors buy into. It's this kind of fake momentum. It's a little bit like a funding round that I like to start my funding round with. I'm already subscribed. You know, we're just looking for the right investors, because then you come with a sense of energy on the table. There's nothing worse than coming to a CEO that looks burnt down, like he's been going for 2 months and he's already tired and he didn't find the right investor, and the guys that he outsourced to didn't do good work. They can feel that. They're like, come on, guy. Like, they want a guy who's like, yes, I did this last week, and then you have an update. So the company I'm mentoring, I tell them when they speak to an investor, next week is all about getting some good news to send to the investor, because that's the way of following up. And you can reverse hack that in such many ways. So if you'd like to speak to a guy who deals with, cat food partnerships, send out 1,000 emails. Seriously, send out 1,000 emails. You can use a tool for that. Scrape LinkedIn and get one good reply, and then take a screenshot of the reply and say, look at this, so excited. He wants to hear more about cat food. I really feel like we've got something special. That is how you build momentum, and that is how you carry yourself and get investors on board. But if you don't do it, if you just sit and work in your spreadsheet, then that's not it. So the self-hatred and being good at many things and momentum, that's the 2 things you need to balance.
So for us now, as it does seem like quite a long time ago when we like in that phase, it's about hiring, because it's been a good couple of years since we had the product, we had the market fit, and we've been doing it. It's very much been about, we're disrupting our marketplace, and therefore the original people who work in our marketplace are not the people we really want to hire. They're not on the cultural right level. They're not of the knowledge base we want. They're not the cultural fit in any way, shape or form, because we're disrupting a market. So for us, it's been about growing the business and hiring the right people to keep the culture exactly how we want and serve everyone the way we want to. And actually recently it's been about, we did our last big company offsite, and it was all about focus. We've gone from everyone doing everything, which is where we were for 3 years, and it's just, you just have to have every single hat on in the world to build that company, to now where we have everyone has a very kind of fixed goal in what they're doing. Each team has a very fixed goal in what they're doing to help the other teams. We've actually now introduced go-to-market groups between teams, because as you start to grow, you start to realize that each team is building themselves their own different pot inside the company, and they're building their own different group. And so now bringing those together and making sure the whole company grows on a way that is exactly how we want to be as Capitalisers, as is our kind of phrase. It's cheesy, I know, but and actually, if you look at it, if you look at the goals that we've set with the VCs, the amount of people that have come into our business in the near future means actually setting up a business that can grow in that way. And we've recently hired A guy who built Receipt Bank, they're now Series D. And he grew them from 50 people to 500 people. And because we were all building the business, know everything you possibly know about the accounting space and about funding, what we didn't all know about was how to get a business from 40 people to 500 people. That was a skill lacking in our business. And now we've actually, hired that person. That could be a really big step in our business, but that actually happened before as well. You need to get people to help you through each size shift in your business, and we're in a new one now. And actually, I've found that hiring the right people to help us do that could be one of the best things we've done in that phase.
I would just add, I think linked in with that is you shouldn't expect to be experts on everything, and whether it's having angels who you can lean on, who can look for advice, or recruiting someone that can take you to that next stage, or it's accountants or lawyers, it's having that network of people around you that you can lean on. And if you're too controlling, or you think I need to know everything about everything, it's my baby, it's my business, I need to know everything that's going on, it won't work. You need to delegate if you can. It's very hard when it's something you're super passionate about, but delegate to those, either hire those people that know more than you to take you to that next point, or use the advisors, the network, build that network up that you've got, that you can lean on these people to help you in the times that you need them. So that would be my one bit of advice.
So talking to someone who's in the next stage is really useful. You're a Series A company, talk to someone who's recently raised Series B. They've been through a serious journey. You're a seed company, talk to someone who's raised Series A, because there's a lot has gone on since Angel, Seed, A, and now into B. We've been on it's been a really fun journey, but it's been a journey. Fun and rewarding, but obviously it has we call a lot of things. There's a great book called The Messy Middle, which is one I've recommended, which is not many people tell you about. People tell you how exciting it is to start a startup, and they tell you how exciting it is to exit a startup. There's not many books that tell you what actually happened between those two things, and that's kind of a lot of the ups and downs of building these businesses is quite amazing. One week everything's working perfectly for you and it's just wonderful. The next week nothing's going right at all, and this is the cycle that you've just got to get used to. And leaning on advisors is something I'm particularly passionate about. Lots of people have a lot more knowledge than you do. Don't be too egotistical to think that you know everything. You know everything about your market and what you're doing. There's lots of other things that need to happen in a business to make it work.
I think there's a question at the back.
Yeah, I was wondering just strategies to avoid and cut off the bad apples out there in terms of investors. So whether it be angels that are kind of, again, like as was already mentioned, angel investor could really, range across the board. So people that almost just kind of want to be in the scene, so they're meeting with entrepreneurs and kind of just wasting your time and will never invest, or the VCs that are meeting with you to get competitive intelligence for their portfolio company, or frankly just general unreasonable investors that you want to avoid, because once they become shareholders, then that's a kind of a very long-term relationship that you'll have to deal with. So what strategies have you had, particularly on the early seeds side, to identify those quickly and just cut things off quickly?
Well, I think that's like all but one of those things are part of fundraising. So don't worry about getting competitive advice. I think that's a myth. I've met so many investors. I just sent my pitch deck to my biggest competitor's investor, because I'm like, fine, have it. I don't. There's so much ethics involved in this space, and this very close cluster at the start of space that I wouldn't even think about starting a startup and having that in mind. You can worry about that 5 years time. For now, it's just about being positive. And 90% of the conversations you're going to have with business angels are people who's not going to invest. I think somebody told me unemployed poor person is called entrepreneur, unemployed rich person is called an angel, right? So, so of course you're going to meet them, but as I said before, have 50 meetings a week, and then one of them, he might say, I actually know a friend, and then he's the one to invest. I've met a lot of investors that way. So your job is not to represent a company and have meetings, it's to represent yourself and have as many meetings as possible. So you're doing marketing, also for your product. So I would just not think about that. And of course, when you get later down the round, you could ask for. So when he's just about to invest, just keep him warm always, no matter how bad he is. Keep him warm always, because you never know what happens. And when you're just about to invest, you can ask him, hey, can I get a testimonial for the portfolio companies? I've done that before. When I came to UK and didn't know a lot about the market, and then you speak to one of the portfolio companies, but keep them open until that stage, because you never know. That's my advice.
I was just going to say, it's a little bit like a game of poker. You know, it's how strong is your hand as well when you're going to these angels. How desperate, how badly do you need the investment at that time? If you've got a strong hand and you don't need it and you can be choosy, then you've got the time to handpick, have the 40 meetings, go and be particular about exactly the angel that you want to go, that's exactly going to synergize with your business and add that extra value. If you're desperate, you don't come from a wealthy background, you haven't got a huge amount of money, and you've got this idea and you've only got X amount, you're renting somewhere, whatever else, and this is the be all and end all, you don't have such a strong hand to play, and therefore your choice and who you go for the angel, the balance changes somewhat.
I just want to say I completely agree with the competition piece. Like, you aren't a competitor yet. Once you've got a business and you're growing, then you still need to focus on you. As you get much bigger, maybe even pretty large companies, does the competitive aspect really come into it? I think a lot of companies fall early on because they get obsessed by what their competitors are doing, and they actually change their roadmaps, and they even change their steering committees and push them towards making sure they're covering. I think when you go into business and you build your own thing, you've got to kind of trust your what you're doing and what your vision is and the why. And if you don't have that core why about what you're trying to do, you won't be able to convince anyone. If you can't convince yourself and you focus on the competition, and that's, if there's anything to take away from that, I definitely micro-focus on your why, because that's what the investor's going to do. Some investors buy all the competitors. Some investors only want one in each space. So it's really hard to tell which one's someone who wants to, have a little bit in every one because they believe the certain subsector of the market could be a really big play, and some just want to do it in one. And I'd say, I don't know how anyone would do that other than trial and error. Lots of meetings. That would be a very clever tech company to solve the optimization of angel meetings.
But actually, also back to the other point, I think your main job as an entrepreneur, this is probably my strategy, a lot of other founders probably, is to create this FOMO. Like, all of a sudden fintech is hot. Why is fintech hot? It's because there's been a pack of brilliant entrepreneurs hyping it. Unfortunately, that's how it works. So say yes to everything, and then you come and say, yeah, I've got 2 investors. I don't like them that much, so I'd rather take your money. But I do have the offer, and this is the offer. You can say that. So it's about always putting yourself in a position where, in reality, yeah, to be honest, you are in a weak position, but putting yourself in the best negotiation position always. No matter, I've been the worst month. I had the worst, Q4 was the worst, and that was when I was fundraising last year. And then they're like, hey, what's the good news from last quarter, right? And you just find something. You just need to find something, because you don't say it was a bad month, and you don't say there's no investors. You find something, and it's just, so it's about collecting all those quick wins. You cannot say, no, that's good, not good enough. And then once you've got the offer on the table, you start doing your due diligence. And obviously, I can speak a lot about that, about taking the right deal and how to fix your cap table and how you can mess up your business and stuff. But I'm not going to preach about too much about that right now.
Specific skill set.
Okay. Are there any more questions from the floor? A minute? No.
For you, what which sources have been the most productive to find a lot of angels? So, in today's time, there are so many events that one can go to, and physically it may not be possible to kind of figure out which ones are where you can find those. So any tips on how to go about finding those 200, 300 angels you talked about?
yeah, don't call them angels. Look at people who are in high net worth positions and contact them on LinkedIn and find a common ground. If you look at how much money do you need to get started, maybe like 50K, 100K. How many angels is that putting in 5 to 10K each? And then there's not such thing called an angel. These guys are angels of the year and so forth. You know, they invest primarily from their network. If they're angel, then they get the deal flow from their network. And guess who the network is? It's people who don't call themselves angels, as such. So I would just for me, it's always, most of the time, it's been like going to like an investor pitch event. If I pitch, yes, I only go there if I can pitch. If I can't pitch, then I don't go, because you won't get angels that way. Go to where people are passionate about your product and idea, and you're always going to be 2 connections away from the perfect investor. So back to my bad example of cat food, right? Go to an animal food catering conference, right? And then speak to people who are so excited about this. That's how you're going to find the angel. That's my opinion. I found so many. Look, I'm quite lucky because most investors are into the cap table management space. But still, I've had so many investors coming to me just because they are, nerds about like capital markets and capital structures and stuff.
For me, I've kind of missed being in this area. We've been in Victoria, and then we're now in Southwark. This area is full of meetings. I mean, if you just go on to like Eventbrite, there's the amount of places like TechHub that are willing to introduce you to investors. Like, you can dive in and lose yourself in the world of kind of angels in this area. And so if you do a lot of that, that's another key way. I think it is a self-fulfilling thing. It's quite second connection, which is probably a negative thing for the future of startups and diversity. But it's very much, we got our initial funding from connections, which is probably not a great thing for the future of the dynamic nature of the market, because it was people that we knew or knew of already. And so I would just get out there and network.
Yeah, there's a few questions come through. There's a lady over there on the left.
Christian, you mentioned how the journey's taken 5 years.
Yeah.
You could have expected it to be faster. So in hindsight, what are some of the things that you think you could do differently, or what do you attribute sort of just a longer duration to?
I think every company is different in terms of time, and I feel extremely grateful to be where I am with the product and so forth. Did I think it was going to take this long? Probably not. Well, I keep on telling my founders that every company is different. There's so many different dynamics. You can't say, look at Monzo, they're unicorn, they start at the same time as you. You just can't, because every company is different. They're going to need different, we are an equity management platform, right? So we need to build a lot of features in our tech in order to sell that, because it's a software as a service. The software as a service platforms. We were in a market without any existing providers, so it meant that we had to educate the market. So there's so many things you can take into it, and I would not look at time as such. Actually, this funding round, some of the investors start saying, "Oh, you've been going for 4 years. That's good. So you know what it's about." There's no overnight successes. Maybe I don't even know. Maybe in B2C there might be some overnight successes because you launch something, but then you also the churn in B2C is also incredibly high in success. So the lifetime value might be lower. So what is a success? Like, if you make a sticky SaaS product, I've got 50 clients, they all grow in their subscriptions and they never churn, or having an overnight success selling a lot of t-shirts with a brand on, and then 2 months later nobody buys them anymore. Everything is relative, so just stick to the targets that you set for yourself. That's my answer.
For a startup with founders who have no prior experience of any startup, how should they approach their initial fundraising angel?
I mean, I think it's about keeping. I cannot say this enough. It's about keeping yourself accountable on tasks every week, not looking at the outcome. I always tell myself whenever I go into a funding round, I don't want to blame myself for throwing this away. Hence, I'm going to set up some metrics I need to do. And it's about, I need to have this many conversations with a partner from a fund. In order to do that, I'm going to send out all these emails. I'm going to try to get some intros. So set some set some parameters up so when you're thinking about this from 5 years from now, that's how I like to think, then you know you did everything you could. And that's my best advice. Set yourself some goals each week and then know I did everything I could because I did those goals and I could not have done more than that. And that's what you should tell yourself, because it's not guaranteed it's going to work. Like, everybody doesn't get to become a millionaire driving in a fancy car, sitting in their company. That's not how it works. It takes, like, there's a lot of, I might also fail, you know. Every time you've got a funding round, there's a possibility that you don't get the money and there comes a crash and all of a sudden it's done. So just know every single week that you're doing everything you could under the circumstances, and then write that down.
So with everything happening in the UK at the moment, obviously with fintech not being the most transportable sector to regulation and stuff, you know, I keep hearing things like, oh, you know, just go to Dubai, there's so much cash and people are tripping over it. Whereas, you know, having the expertise on the ground here in the UK is something where you can go to them, you can talk to them, etc. What's your guys' advice on kind of going for investment from different countries and bringing it in and kind of looking outside the UK for angel rounds, etc.?
So we went to America. They have lots of money. And they're very skilled, and they really know their stuff, and they know how to scale. We did do some UK investment as well. We are a fintech company that struggles massively with the ability to globally scale. We are building an aggregation way of really understanding the underwriting model of the UK to make sure that advisors send their companies to the best possible lender in that market. Therefore, we have hundreds of legal agreements with lenders all across the country. We have understand the underwriting model of the UK to perfection. The underwriting model in the US is really different. The underwriting model in France is really different. But the core infrastructure of our product would be amazing for America. It would be amazing. Just the problem is the cost of us going there, learning a whole load of new lenders, bringing them on, and doing that is actually going to be that's going to be a pretty sizable C if we want to do that. And so I find the fintech market really struggles with scalability, because we become extreme experts in our market, and we then have to work out how to become extreme experts in someone else's market. And that is probably one of our biggest challenges for the growth of Capitalise. Is we have found product market fit in the UK, and we could do it in America, we could do it in Canada, we could do it in Australia, and we could do it mostly in kind of Commonwealth countries where the lending laws are more similar, and that would be probably the easiest place to start. But we could hypothetically go everywhere, but actually the amount of capital needs to do that, because of we can't just plug and play it into another country. So I suppose I haven't answered that question yet.
Does that put off international investors if you go to America to try and find investment where it might be slightly easier or different? The fact that you're kind of stuck in the UK until you have to put a massive effort behind it, does that put them off?
So the market fit for us was huge still in the UK to convince a very large US investor that has 3 or 4 unicorns already in its fund that we're in. So we managed to do it based on the fact that there is the future potential. But actually VCs are quite realistic on what you've got to do and achieve first before you then get to that next phase. But yes, it's definitely fintech. It has a cross-border. Just look at N26, classic example of we're too established already.
You mean withdrawal from the UK?
Pardon?
You mean withdrawal from the UK?
Yeah, sorry, not really explain that. Yeah, so N26 just withdrew from the UK, and they said Brexit, legal things. Bung then said, we're fine, all good. Ultimately, they were a generalist, and we've got neobank generalism down. Like, you've got to go vertical if you're going to enter this market now, because we're a really mature fintech market. So actually, we're nowhere near as mature a fintech market. So, like, for us, I think Capitalise would be wonderful in America. It's just a really big decision at some point in a company's life to go there. And one of our Xero, has everyone here heard of Xero? Most people are using or heard of Xero. They're doing very well. They've really commandeered their market. They really are the owner of that market. They're just having a field day. They're not having a very good time, just without swearing. They're not having a great time in America because of just the hugely dominance of QuickBooks. And if someone like that, with that much, they've got just a wonderful business culture, they've got a great market fit and everything, and they just can't get there. So yes, it's a challenge that we're working out as we go along. So I didn't answer that question, I just sympathised with it.
I would just say, sorry, I'd just say just specifically about the US, in terms of fundraising from the US, certainly a number of my clients have ended up setting up a Delaware, I don't know about what the structure is of Capitalise, but certainly set up a Delaware holding company and on top of the UK subsidiary, because they found that the American investors were far more comfortable in investing into a US company, and Delaware has certain tax advantages as well. So having that structure certainly made them more attractive. I can't speak about Dubai.
So luckily for us, our American investor has one person on the ground in the UK and the ability to do it from here. But I'm quite interested in the Dubai comment. I will explore.
I've actually been speaking to some investors in the Middle East, and I think you end up speaking to investors all over the world. I don't mind where they are, as long as they're interested. That's again the thing. I think, like, if they contact you or if you get introduced to them and they say, hey, we'd like to perhaps put some money into it, then take the conversation. The hard thing is finding them. Obviously, it's not that you go to Dubai and they just throw money at you. Like, you need to get into some kind of network. But I mean, that's the wonderful thing about this as well. As you said before about second connections, that one of my investors is Chinese, and all of a sudden, like, many of these investors coming into this round is Chinese, because that's her network and she knows them, right? And then one of my other investors is Indian, and then again it's an Indian network, and you get to pick and choose for all the network. And now I'm also about to introduce to the Middle East network, and that's just going to make myself much stronger in the future, because I can tap into all these networks around the world. So I think it's just about you as a founder, or you as a CEO at least, the main job you have is just making sure that there's just a stream of cash you can always tap into whenever you need it. And where that cash comes from, that can be decided in a board meeting. But your job is to keep that cash coming everywhere and saying, I've got the cash, this is the terms, should we do it? So just keep your head up and speak to them all.
I bet there's some pretty complicated cap tables in Dubai.
Yeah, there's some. So we're just a shell company and then all the Dutch companies under them.
Any more questions from the floor at all? Okay. Have you got any? Sorry, yes, of course.
Probably won't be able to say, but what are your revenues at the moment, and what's the plan for exit? What success, basically?
It's hard, that question, because we have, like, revenue-wise, we don't share at the moment, but we are doing well enough to come ploughing into our Series B. And goals are different because it all depends on what happens for us now. Our goal right now is to take a certain percentage of our market in the UK and actually kind of make sure we can own the space and be a market leader, and because competitors will probably follow us at some point and come into our market. That's our core focus. If we aren't focusing on anything right now other than making sure we are doing the best for our customers and having the best product to grow to what we want to do. But there is a phrase right now, as we've kind of done 2020, and you've got to start thinking about 2021, which is an interesting one that we are kind of looking at. So it's very hard to say in our company's growth as we are what our end goal is, because obviously there could be a trade sale, or we could go to IPO. And I wish I had more kind of knowledge on that. I've been in the VC industry and I've been in equity capital markets, so I've actually worked in both exit in options. So
you can trade your shares in Capdesk if you
want to. or maybe the secondary market is invented before then. It's not bought by NASDAQ again.
Yeah. Gentleman at the back.
How many times have you been close to failure, and what did you do in that case?
Every time you raise the funding round, and every time I raise the funding round. I think that's it. I mean, where you're the most vulnerable is the very beginning, if you don't have any revenue. So we started the first 2 years without any revenue at all, and that was super tough. Whenever you reach the end of your runway, as it's called. Runway is when you don't have any more money, it runs out of the bank. Then you are basically in a position. I always tell my girlfriend once a year, yeah, half the year I'm going to be completely worried, and half the year I'm going to celebrate. You know which half is going to be, and we typically have holiday where I'm celebrating because you never know when the funding round strikes. Yeah, so I would always put like 7 months into fundraising as a buffer. I'll start fundraising over there 7 months. If you raise money for a 6-month runway, I'll start fundraising right away, because that's where you're going to fail. It's because you can't get funding. That's what it's all about. Unless you've got a profitable company in the beginning. But then it's also about, I still think funding is important, actually because of the growth and so forth. I think if you look at the company, your job is to raise money when you peak. So whenever it peaks, you raise money. So even though you don't need the money, you do it because all of a sudden you're gonna have it happens to all companies, you're gonna stagnate. And then you can't say, I would like funding, but I haven't grown revenue by more than 3% month on month the last 12 months. What you want to do is just when you hit, the 20% month on month growth, that's when you get the funding round, and then afterwards you stagnate, and then you've got time to figure it out again, and then you raise funding again. So it's all these peaks. So yeah, I had one time where my co-founder, he was in charge of our financials, and there was a hole in our financials. So it meant that we thought we had 3-month runway, and we had 2 weeks. And so we had a board meeting, and we had the worst quarter ever in terms of all results. And at the end of the board meeting, I had to basically say, and then we're also going to run out of cash in 2 weeks. and we thought you could help us. Yeah, just suck it in, and we got through it somehow. So, yeah.
I'd say our angel round we had our runway was not quite that exciting, but it was definitely, if we wanted. But since now, from going to Series A and going to Series B, we've always been quite well funded. So our runways have been in the years at the moment, which is a luxury we know we're very lucky to have, because we hit revenue quite early because of our business model. But the angel round was where we really did have to complete our angel round.
I'm going to remember that when I sell you Capdesk tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, that cash.
We're spending it.
Yeah.
So we go back up to
Yeah, exactly.
So could you just comment on how you think about using product strategy to drive company growth? And what I mean by that, although you're talking about Zero, one of the things that Zero did very consciously was sort of take like an API first approach and did lots of integrations and really created an ecosystem around them. How do you both think of something like that in context of growth?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something you have to, like when you make your first product, make sure, it goes a little back to what I said in the beginning about stakeholders. Like make sure that you get a certain amount of stakeholders on, if that's users, if that's people listing their stuff, get them on, and then cater for that experience to make sure. What we did is we've got equity management platform. I'm not going to bore you with it, but it means that we've got cap tables, so we've got share registers which we put online, and then they invite all those shareholders to join. So I would just target companies with as many shareholders as possible, and then I was so happy when they finally went live, as we called it, because then I got all the users. So it wasn't exactly a scalable company as such, but it looked like it on paper. And then what we did is actually that we started investing in actually making even though our product was really bad, we just invested in making it as easy as possible for those shareholders to sign up and invite other companies. And I think that is how we got by the first 2 years while we had to develop the platform, because it took a long time to develop, because we didn't raise a lot of funding in the beginning. So yeah, I think keep your initial product super simple and make sure it's gone. I think that's my main point, how you do it. Make sure that it can succeed within your runway. And your runway is 6 months for fundraising. So if you're building a product and you've got 6-month runway, you need to prove something tomorrow because you're going out fundraising. You've got a year, then you've got 6 months to build something, and you cannot build the whole product. So get those quick wins in.
So for what we do is it's when we're in the product steering cycle, actually putting potential revenue increase revenue metrics on the product teams. So each team within product knows what the kind of revenue opportunity of that build is. And then when we come as a leadership team, we meet with the product team and they pitch to us the potential new builds, who they've interviewed within the custom base, because we do a lot of customer testing and a lot of asking what we should do next. And then we actually put a metric onto that product team. Don't let a product team build something just because it's nice and might look very good. Everything that you build in product, because the product person wants to kind of build the most beautiful looking thing, and the tech team wants to build the best possible code in the most neat way, and the sales team want to make sure it's actually going to go to market with the marketing team. So aligning those three views, and so that's why in our leadership team we've got representations of all of those people. Every single time we vote on where we're going to move our product, in what direction, what's going to go into the pipeline, is based on the value add of each one of those products. Do not build a feature because it sounds like a nice feature to build, ever. Build a feature because you believe it will help your customers do what they are doing on your platform. And so having a kind of review and success metric of each new product that you're building, and then at the end of that 6-month cycle, because product cycles can be quite long, particularly for a commercial director, then view that and say what was successful and what wasn't, and then look to build what you're going to build based on what has been successful in that. So we do have a management consultant who used to do this for a living as one of our founders. So we were in a lucky situation of his job was to consult large corporates on what to build in their technology stack. So we have had the fortune of, within our early team, having that knowledge.
A management consultant could actually do it himself.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, just quick. When you mentioned at the beginning, when you were building your product, you said you had to keep it simple. It wasn't very good. Would you have gone for funding earlier then to make it a better product, or you just go get it out there? Just if it's simple, just go with it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't know like what the market's gonna like. You're just you, right? And it's gonna change. You know one thing, and that is what investors would like to see in the next round. That's the only thing you know. Investors would like to see growth. Investors would like to see revenue. Investors would like to see user engagement. That's what you know. You don't know anything about your product. So you just need to hack one of those things. If that's revenue growth, do something that generates revenue right away. If it's users, generate something that's just generating a lot of users. They might be super unhappy. If it's about happiness, if you like to show user quality, then build something for a very close, small segment and show they can provide a good value. But I think it's finding that metric, like finding that one thing you want to succeed on, just building for that, because you cannot do it all at once. You cannot have a lot of users who've got a fantastic experience, getting a lot of revenue with no churn. It's just impossible. Maybe I've been pessimistic. Somebody has done it. But at least if you're funded with like the amount of funding that we had in the beginning of 20, 50K, thereabout, you just can't do it.
I just want to add on that. So we as an accounting firm early adopt so many different types of softwares and things that we think is the next greatest thing. That's how we know these guys as well, early adopted on their stuff. And the ones for us that really work for us is exactly that. They keep it simple early on, and then we enjoy the product, its simplicity, and then they build from it thereafter. The ones that have really been incredibly frustrating for us, and we've invested a huge amounts of time on it, are the ones that promised everything, even though they knew they couldn't do half of it, and then we potentially use it with our clients, and it became a real disaster.
Completely agree. How much do you decide to raise?
No, I mean the equity. How much equity you should be giving
To give away.
That's what we.
That's a very long, drawn-out discussion between two parties.
Yeah.
But also, there's the amount of free float that you want to open up as well for your current and future employees, because you obviously all startups want to get the rest of your people in your team on a journey with you, so you need a good free float as well. But yeah, that's a big discussion.
It's the same as the valuation, right? So the percentage you give away is what sets the valuation in the beginning. So the two things are correlates with each other, and you don't want to. It depends on you. If you want to give out 50% of the company very early on, then it's up to you. But I think you probably don't want to do that. Typically, you're looking at each funding round at about 20%, like between 10 and 20%. I would say that's kind of what we aim for. And then if you give out more than 20% to one investor, it would because to be strategic, like strategic, not that they're strategic investor, but they can follow up in other rounds, for example, or they've got like they can come with a lot of cash at once. It's not because you oversubscribe the round, 10 to 20%, I think.
One recommendation there is we are not America. Don't raise 100 million until you need 100 million. It's more acceptable in the UK to go for smaller rounds. So when we did our angel, we could have got more, but we only took 750 from 3 people because that's actually all we wanted to spend in the period of time running up to what we predicted our Series A would be, to have a better valuation and to be more in control of the company. So the whole massive war chest, amazing first round, just because Airbnb did it, is particularly in the UK fintech sector is not how I would go. I would raise, if you have the option to raise more than you want, just do go a bit higher, but don't go mad. If it's
Well, I think it's also you can actually reverse engineer your whole journey. So reverse engineer how much money would you like to earn on an exit, how long should it take, and how much money do I need, and then you've actually got, well, I should raise this amount. That will give me 12 months to do this. Then I know it's hard to do, right? But then you get a sense of how much your stake will be in the end, and how much you need to raise. Sometimes, and then that's the first point. You can reverse engineer the whole thing, and then secondly, funding. Funding takes time as well. So, and it depends on the product. So if you think you can hit the market like really fast with a product, then don't raise too much. But if there's a lot of product risks, then I would just say, go for it. Like this one, like give it a go. But keep in mind that in order to reverse engineer the journey, you cannot raise the next round before you can do 3x exit. So if you can't 3x it, you won't raise the next round because nobody's going to support a flat round. So when you raise a lot of money, it's because you also have a good valuation. And to get a good valuation, you always need to make sure you can triple it. So I would never take in money at a valuation where I couldn't triple it. I think that's really important because then you know you can take it in and you can use something. Your job as a founder is to convert equity into money. That's it. Convert equity, make it more and more worth. And you do that by taking in money, spending that money to make your equity more worth. So if you can take in £100 million and make the company worth 500 million instead of 200 million, do it. But you can't. I think it's quite hard. So it depends on your strategy and how bold you are.
Just to add to that, I think you're on this panel. You're the optimist, and I'm not the realist, but the pessimist maybe. I don't know. But I'm working with a client at the moment who's raised multiple investment rounds. But as the founder, their idea, really passionate about it. They currently only have about 14% of the equity, and as a result of that, they've lost their drive. They've lost where they're going. The company's, worth, last valuation was like 15 to 20 million. So it's not, it's not what they were going in. They were looking. It's still not bad, but they haven't got the drive every day to go in, and they're coming to me. What's going to motivate? How do I do this? How do I resolve this? So you do have to be really careful. You've only got, I always use, you've only got this one pie that you can only give away so much, and you think you're giving away for free or raising the investment, but it will go down, go down, go down. And funnily enough, it's where we haven't really spoken about at all so far about actually what Capitalise do, the debt financing, but it's where certainly where you are down the line, maybe not in the early stages, but down the line, stuff like debt financing becomes a much bigger play because you suddenly giving away some of your equity becomes really, it bothers you far more, and there's other ways of getting some money.
Yeah, I suppose this is something we haven't. So I was in venture capital. I was the operations manager, which meant I was the person you sent all your cash flows to. I looked at your cash flow and went, "Oh wow, you're quite healthy." Or "Oh God, yeah." So sorry. And when receiving all your cash flows, It's quite amazing how many VC-backed companies are not doing very well. And when I say not doing very well, I'm not saying they're not sustainable businesses. I'm saying they're not 10x businesses. And there's a really big thing at the moment. And what I did is, in my journey, I had one of my clients, they needed a bit more money, not a huge amount more money. They were a 2x company. They were not a 10x company. I knew that we weren't going to do any form of follow-on with this company. So I went to the wider market and I found them this exciting company called Market Invoice, and I put Market Invoice money into one of our companies. I then found my kind of why and kind of purpose, and I didn't believe that I was actually someone who wanted to be on that side. I wanted to be in the business, so I actually left and joined Market Invoice, because I actually found that if you look at the, sounds a bit evangelical, but if you look at the UK market, most businesses are actually being grown by debt. And don't always assume between rounds you've not got other options to find money in your business. Not every business can continue on a 3x to 10x journey. And one of the things we do at Capitalise is we help with those other companies. And that's the journey that I went on, was when I realized that if you've got a portfolio of 25 companies and maybe 20, actually realistically 3 or 4 of those are going to get to Series B, but actually 15 of those are going to be very sustainable businesses that could go on and become a really good business where someone exits for 15 million but owns 80%. And you could also have someone who eventually goes on the full journey to G or something like that, and it sells for 400 million and they get far less because they only own like 2% anymore. And you've really got to think about whether you're equity obsessed, whether it's equity that you're really into, and is that the journey you want to go on? And actually, if you've now got sustainable revenue, you've got a business you could turn profitable, and you have the option now to actually turn that business profitable, change what your top line growth is going to be, and actually use some other form of debt and own more of a smaller company. Or it could just be helping with your run rate between different rounds. So I suppose a message, just as someone who's been on both the debt side and the equity side, is don't always just obsess on the one side. I would look at debt's not available for you if you're in your seed early rounds, no revenue. So stay with equity. But if you're a 2-year-old business, you've got some decent revenue coming in, you've got some serious customers, you could potentially be profitable, you've already made profit, it is possible to find other ways. So, that's just I suppose a message to everyone that the majority of the businesses in this country are actually grown by debt. So.
Well, I think I'll counter that a little bit from the equity management point of view, because the thing that they're saying about percentage you own and your earnout, it's not correlated. What happens in venture funding is that you get terms which has something called participation and liquidation preferences, and that basically ends up with, you could have 50% of the company, but get SoftBank to invest at 1 billion with a 4x liquidation preference, which they do. Then no matter if you sell it for 400 billion pounds, you still have to give back. SoftBank still gets back the money and you don't get nothing. So it's correlated to the terms you go into VC with. And therefore, sometimes it's better to have 5% of something with only one share class, with business angels, than to have something that's 30% with venture funding and a high valuation. And that's what we speak a lot about. And we try to encourage some of the users on our platform to understand this. Because all of a sudden, when you're down the CSG round, you've got so many layers on top of your cap table that it's almost impossible to cash out, or understand how much you need to cash out. Hence, it might be better diluting yourself on ordinary shares. We've got some content that's on our website in terms of how you model it out and how you do it. But I think it's just something that's very relevant, that whenever I do a deal, I would much rather look at ordinary shares and dilute myself a lot. Obviously, not too much, because you still need to have a say in the company, rather than having a VC coming in at very high valuation, not diluting you a lot, but having these liquidation preferences. All it means is that they're entitled to get their money back a certain amount of times, and then also get a certain percentage of the company. So let's say you invest 100 million pounds into a company, and you've got a 2x liquidation preference, and you earn 50% of the company, right, as a VC. and then I said 200, right? And then you exit for 400 or 400, then they get all their money out because they've got 2x liquidation preference, right? So they're entitled to get the money back 2 times. And yes, you as a founder get nothing. So there's a lot of parameters that goes on. That being said, I also feel like in terms of with some of this, because I do believe debt is good, but once you play the venture game, it's, I would almost say, if you take in a VC, it's because you want to grow your company by making your equity more valuable. You cannot say that now we're stagnating. And that's the thing you have to be aware about. Do you stick with business angels, ordinary shares, keep it at a low valuation and exit and everybody gets something? Or do you take the risk and play the venture game, which is there's never going to be an end. And they're going to put terms and they're going to pace you and you might end with nothing. So I also think it's a strategic thing that VC is not for everybody. And if you could get all the money without a VC, I'd certainly done it.
Yeah, agreed. So that's called your waterfall. So please work out your waterfalls, because as soon as you get into a VC backed environment, it's some reasonably comic. Brad Field, I forgot what it's called. He has a good book that explains venture. Yeah, read Brad Field's books, Venture Deals, and he really explains all the different stuff that goes on a term sheet in venture capital. And if you read that and then you think maybe it's actually debt or something like that I want to do in business, this is kind of the thing, is there are other options. It is they do need to make a lot of money because quite a lot of their companies fail, so they actually have to do very well in the ones that don't. So please tread carefully, but it's also an exciting journey if you do it right.
Yeah, I have a question for Stephen. So you mentioned before of course you use your own software, and some investments turned out well and some didn't. So how do you decide what software you would use?
Yeah, it's not investments that we've made. It's just us as an accounting practice. Which ones do we look for? So we're looking for ones that are going to add value, that are going to differentiate us from the market. So we're going to various conferences, looking at what the latest technology is, especially for us in automation, in making our clients' experience as seamless as possible, and that really one of our aims is that they only pay us for the high-level tax knowledge that we've got in our heads, and everything else that could be potentially automated or done like systems like Capdesk or Capitalise. Lots of caps. And that's what we do. But we've made mistakes. There's a certain product that we've got at the moment that's some cash flow software that promised us everything, and we really pushed it to clients, and just basic stuff like working out wages and allocating PAYE to a different month, that you pay your PAYE the different months to the date of the wages. It just can't do, and it's caused us really big problems. So we've learned a lesson, I think, both of us, and our other partners.
They could beta test on someone else is really where we are.
Yeah, we'll beta test on someone else. But I think if it's simple, and I think that's the key thing. If it's a simple product, simple proposition that we get, and it fulfills a purpose straight away, instantly, then that's great. And then add on to it. It's exactly funny. I'm talking about Xero. That's exactly how they started. It was a very simple bookkeeping system, and gradually over time they've just added and added and added features and features and features, and now it's it's the absolute number one. We were using Sage 15 years ago and QuickBooks and things like that. Xero is the only product that we use, and it's taken the market by adding and adding and adding and adding.
Sorry, one more for me. I was wondering your views, because you mentioned, Christian, the fact that it's very you're meeting with people, you're talking with people. It's a very angels get their deal flow through their own networks, etc. So I was wondering what your view is on the online angel networks, so the kind of Gus or Angel Investment Network. Is it worthwhile to pursue those, given that you don't have that kind of warm introduction? So sorry, that's one question. The second is just the general view of the panel on equity crowdfunding.
So my pack.
That's a big second question.
And the third, valuation.
Yeah.
I actually came into this space because I used to run a equity crowdfunding platform in Scandinavia, so I should know a lot about this. Hence why I created this software, because it was such a mess. No, but I think it probably answers both of your questions. There's this, I remember we used to call it in my previous company, we called it the bartender effect. So a bartender, he would always put a lot of tips in order to get before the night, because if there's a lot of tips already in his little glass, then a lot of people will tip. So how crowdfunding works is a lot FOMO, right? You fill it up with 80% and you overfund it by like 300%. And then the same thing with cost and so forth, you make sure you already have the commitments and then you overfund. I've done a lot of crowdfunding deals, and that's unfortunately how it works. And a lot of people get disappointed because they launched a campaign and think now this site is just going to magically get a lot of investors for me. Fortunately, not how it works. And there's a lot of shady stuff going on in equity crowdfunding, and many of the times, some of what have happened is a fund like Index or Passion would go in with Manso and say like, yeah, we're co-investing in this round. And then the round is filled up and everybody's eager to get in, but they get completely different terms. So it is a little bit unfair for the investor, and it's a lot of FOMO, unfortunately. We thought it would be different back in the days.
What was the first question? Just before I go.
The first question was
the Angels Network and people like that.
Where it kind of loses that personal, warm introduction touch.
One meeting to many. If you're trying to meet lots of people, you might as well give them a go. I've seen some pretty good investments come out of those guys, especially the British Angels fund, because it's kind of like a VC, but it's not. You're pitching to certain people and they'll pitch to the rest. So it's probably good practice. Crowdfunding is, it's an early situation. I definitely wouldn't have done it with our company because we're not a consumer-facing product that can create some form of hype and then kind of tip, as you said. And then I'm not sure I'd like that longer tail on my cap table. So then potentially maybe Seeders is the better option that does it by a proxy. So it's there've been some successful companies that have done it, and there have been many that haven't. And there's a lot of people try compared to the amount of people that actually successfully fund. So it's exactly the same game as the rest. I'd prefer to do it if you're more of a consumer-facing business that can create something, because the main benefit I would want from crowdfunding as a company is a very loyal beta test group, or maybe even alpha, like super early MVP testing, because they kind of already own it and you're going to get pretty good feedback from them. So I'd use it more of a pure product testing, getting a decent early crowd. That's not really what our product was about, so we wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. Just is a very subtle point, and Oliver made about difference between some of the different crowdfunding platforms. Just speaking from the accounting side, that we see the after effects of it, and there's a huge difference. For example, somewhere like Seeders, where it's done as a nominee and a proxy, which keeps the cap table very, very clean, and other ones where you have to do things like confirmation statements, Companies House and things like that, and you've just got pages and pages of shareholders, and it just makes the whole compliance.
I thought you used Capdesk.
That's why that's it. Or use Capdesk to solve all of those issues for the little ones, though, yeah, when they're at a very early stage, yeah.
Well, I don't know about you, but I can smell the pizza, and it's coming about time that we need to wrap things up. So I think it's been a fantastic, insightful event. But if I could just leave with a golden nugget from each of the speakers, if you had one golden thing that you could share to finish up on, that would be great.
Like something else, or just highlight what we've said?
Just tying up what we've said.
Okay, well, I definitely think that my best advice would be this thing about micromanaging you every week, like setting success criteria every week, and just like that's what it is to be an entrepreneur. It's setting a goal for yourself that you reach and celebrate it, and do that every Friday, and then you'll create something.
I will do one party line one and one general one. Look at more at just equity. Look at once you're an established business, you've got more options, and maybe use those. Second one is I'm a big believer of the kind of why you go into business and the culture, and that everyone's on your same journey. So when you're hiring, you really need to hire curious people that are really interested in what you're doing as a business and the kind of why you're doing what you're doing as a business to grow. You don't want to be creating kind of bad apples and people on the way that don't really buy into your business model. If you're disrupting, probably don't hire too many people from the industry you're disrupting, because it's likely they've not got the right case. You've really got to build it from the ground up and train people to be the people that really believe in your firm and who you are. And as I say, Will, who puts his hand up, is one of another capitalizer in the room. And you know, you've really got to be solid on your culture.
My one piece of advice is on a party line. But sort of I'm here with the TechHub. So is that to have advisors and experts and people that you can rely on, to lean on, and also to be in a community, whether it's somewhere like TechHub, where you're hearing there's events, there are things going on, there's other people going through the pain points that you are going through, the same journey that you can talk to, you can speak to. So it can be a very lonely place. I sometimes feel like I'm an agony aunt and a counsellor for some of my clients, and they call me up just to have a cry on a Friday afternoon about or something. But sorry. No, you know, have those advisors close to you, and have them lined up when you need them as well. I've had people saying, I'll speak to you, Stephen, in a year's time when I'm at that point. There's no harm in getting those relationships teed up already, keeping them going, ticking over, so that you know you're ready when you're ready to go and you've raised an investment or whatever you've done, you're ready to go and you've got those connections already made. That's my piece of advice.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you, Stephen, Oliver, and Christian, for all your fantastic inputs. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, TechHub, for hosting. And now we have ample opportunity for more informal networking amongst ourselves, and there's some food and drink knocking around as well. Thank you very much.